loss doesn't just mean death. We seem to think about loss as death, but there's loss that exists, there's grief. Anything to do with mental health, really, as far as I'm concerned, comes down to an aspect of grief, an expression of grief, because it's some kind of loss, whether it's identity, relationship, anything is some kind of loss, until you realize that grief is part of your life, and grief is something that you integrate. It's not drug abuse. We don't need to heal from it. It's part of our life. It is something that we integrate, and it becomes our teacher.
Death is a topic that we'll all experience, but it's also one of the conversations we avoid the most. Whether it's losing a loved one, a relationship, our health, or even a version of ourselves, loss has a way of changing how we see the world. But what if grief wasn't something to get over? What if it could become one of our greatest teachers? In this episode, my guest Jock Brocas and I explore death, grief, and the unknown, not through fear, but through the lessons they can offer about what it means to truly live. Welcome to Mind Blend. I'm your host, Karen Chong. In each episode, I talk with people who have experienced something real, and we break down what made a difference, so you can see yourself and the world around you more clearly, spot what you might have been missing, and move through life with a clearer way forward. If you like what you're hearing, share with those around you and subscribe to Mind Blend. You will help a lot in spreading the insights for anyone who can use them. Let's blend. Joining me today is Jock Brocas, a grief counselor, spiritual teacher, and researcher who has spent more than 25 years exploring grief, consciousness, spiritual crisis, and the human search for meaning after loss. His work combines academic research, lived experience, and studies in areas like after-death experiences, intuition, and parapsychology. He helps people navigate not just grief and the unknown, but how these experiences shape the way we live. Hi, Jock. Excited to have you on Mind Blend.
Thank you. I'm honoured to be on Mind Blend. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. I know we just had we started touching on things just before we even got here, but yeah, I'm glad to be on Mind Blend. Thank you for inviting me, Karen.
And thank you for being here. Your work sits at the intersection of grief and spiritual experience and research.
Yeah.
So we were touching on this when we were talking in the green room, quote unquote. What led you into this work, and how has that shaped your own experience?
I think, I don't want to use the cliche, when I was a child, I had all these magical, mystical experiences. But what I will say is that as a child, I was very spiritual anyway. My uncle was a monk in a monastery. And so I was kind of, it's not as if my family was religious or anyway, but I was very spiritual, and I wanted to be a priest, and I wanted to follow in his footsteps, but become a priest. And so I spent most of my youth in that monastery, and then going on retreats ever since I was young. I would go on retreats, and so it always followed me right into my military career and after. At one point I was getting ready to take holy orders to join the priesthood, but my uncle passed, and they decided that it wasn't good for me at that time to kind of give up my life, and I had to grieve. And they kind of sent me and say, take a bit of a sabbatical, come back in a year or two, go and experience life, and then if you're ready to still take the holy orders and you've dealt with your uncle's passing, then we'll allow you to move forward. But I got so annoyed with them that instead I joined the military. So
yeah, I'm surprised they turned you away.
Yeah, well, I was very, very close, and most of my so I took the loss quite hard, and loss is featured in my life throughout my life ever since I was young. And then into, even into my military career and afterwards. And then, it's just kind of followed me. Loss has been a massive part, I would say, the greatest teacher that I've ever had, I would say, actually. And has, followed me ever since I was young. And so that experience and my spirituality and my my yearning for understanding never left, even in the military and
Mm.
afterwards. And then when I came out of the military, I started working in close protection and high risk security work, but I still maintained a great deal of spirituality, and I'd studied martial arts for many, many years. So I studied a lot of different faiths and Buddhism and everything you can imagine. I just steeped myself in trying to understand everything. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I've always had that researcher's mindset. And
Mm-hmm.
then in my later years, developing as a medium and working professionally as a medium through all my experiences, I wasn't just happy to just accept everything. Like, I wanted to know how it worked. I wanted to know the science behind it. I wanted to know more.
Mm.
And so my researcher yearning never ever left me. And
Mm.
currently that's finishing a master's in psychology at the moment, and then moving into a
Mm-hmm.
PhD in clinical parapsychology. So yeah, I guess I'm just always going to be the researcher.
Mm. So it's a curiosity
Yeah.
and researching, wanting to know everything that led you down this path.
Yeah, and lived experience, not only my experiences, but the experiences of other people, and
Mm.
how their spiritual crisis has shaped them, or how their grief has shaped them, and loss. Whether it's, I have a saying, from the battlefield to the boardroom, loss,
Oh, yeah.
loss exists in every aspect of our life. And the other thing is, Karen, is loss doesn't just mean death. We seem to think about loss as death, but there's loss that exists. There's grief.
Mm-hmm.
Anything to do with mental health, really, as far as I'm concerned, comes down to an aspect of grief, an expression of grief, because it's some kind of loss, whether it's identity, relationship,
Yeah.
anything is some kind of loss. And we tend to just put something into the wrong context, and everybody
Mm-hmm.
thinks grief means death.
Yes, because that's the first word that comes to mind, if you ask me as well.
That's what you think about, and everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
People think
Mm-hmm.
grief means death, and we need to get away from that. It's grief is so. I recently, well, not recently, but I think it was last year, the year before, we had Hurricane Helene here out in North
Mm-hmm.
Carolina. It was
Mm-hmm.
devastating, and I kind of dropped tools and went into the mountains, went to different places to help wherever I could, as much as
Mm-hmm.
many other people in the community did. But what I experienced was every aspect of loss that you can imagine, from loss of life to
Yeah.
even just losing a photograph,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
it's a time capsule, that photograph. So loss exists in everything. And then people losing their careers, people losing finances, then health issues.
Mm-hmm.
I got to witness every aspect of loss that you could imagine.
Now, because there's different kinds of griefs and they don't all have to do with death only,
Mm.
what does the sense of loss and grieving, what does that do to our spirituality and our brain, like the logical minds?
I think here's the biggest question that anybody gets from it is, why?
Mm. Why did it happen to
Why
me
did it
type
happen
thing?
to me? Why did
Mm-hmm.
this go? It's so many whys. Trying to find reason and meaning behind it. Why me? Why them? Why did it have to be this way?
Mm-hmm.
If you're
Yeah, yeah.
religious, why did God take them from me? Why did it happen at this time? Why have I lost it? And it kind of challenges your place in the world, and it challenges your ontology, how your worldview is seen,
Mm.
and how your worldview is felt, and how your worldview is challenged, your security in life. And so when people experience any kind of loss,
Mm-hmm.
their whole identity is challenged.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes a bit of a psychological breakdown for them. When people when they start to lose sense of meaning or who they are,
Mm-hmm.
or the biggest thing, I think, Karen, is disconnection. When they start to feel disconnected, not only from the environment, but from themselves, from relationships, from any loss they've
Mm-hmm.
had from a job, that
Mm-hmm.
disconnection puts them into a sense of turmoil, or as Stanislav Grof, who pioneered this whole idea of spiritual crisis,
Mhm.
where it challenges your whole meaning, and you try to find where your place is, and your whole worldview just is shattered.
Is that why we ask the why question? Because we're at a
We're
loss.
at a loss.
We don't even know what to grab onto.
That's it, and the thing is we never
Hmm.
really ask about what or when, or it's always why, and it's always because we try. I mean, you find it in personal development. People will say, "Find your why," and why are you doing this, and
Mm,
why is it?
yes.
The
Yeah.
reality is the why becomes the biggest challenge, because we
Mm,
don't quite understand. Why did it happen to me? The biggest thing for me at the moment, and I'm probably going through a bit of grief. My wife and I lost so many loved ones, one after the other, a lot.
hmm
But now I'm experiencing another type of grief where I'm like, why am I getting older? I don't like this. Why is my hair thinning on these days and I don't have a short haircut? No. Why can't I bend down and do what I used to do? So we always ask this big thing, why? And it's not about why, what is my why to get on in the world? It's also challenging my whole ontology as well.
So you've mentioned spiritual crisis a few times. What does that mean?
When we use the word spiritual crisis, it tends to bring up this idea in your mind that it's a religion, or it's something that's connected to a religious event, but it's not. Spiritual crisis really is when your whole worldview, when your ontology has been ruptured, when it has been totally challenged, and your idea of yourself, the connection to yourself, dissipates, goes away. You feel lost, and it could come from experiencing grief, a traumatic event. It could be going through a midlife crisis. A spiritual crisis is really when your whole worldview of what you think you are is challenged, and your place in life is changed, is challenged, and it can be from that event. As a case in point, somebody may be a soldier, and they may have a fantastic career ahead of them, but they go out on operations, they get injured, and then their whole life changes. Or someone who's been in an accident, and they have an injury in their life, they can't walk anymore. So they go into their whole worldview, everything that they thought they were, everything that has made their life as it is now is challenged. It is changed, and it fractures. I like to think of it like this: spiritual crisis is something that challenges us to look in within ourselves and to realize the beauty that we have, that even though we may be fractured, there is something beautiful in that. And my greatest example could be the Japanese understanding of kintsugi. Kintsugi, if I can remember it rightly, kintsugi is the art that shows you gold, things that are fractured, a vase, something beautiful is fractured and broken. And in its state, in its brokenness, you have to see that there's beauty still there. And we put it together and we realize that what fractured us makes us transform into something even more beautiful. And you see the imperfection filled in with these streaks of gold. And that's kintsugi. And that to me is like spiritual crisis. It's going beyond that trauma, being resilient in life, and coming through the other end and coming out with a beautiful fractured vase that looks glorious with its gold flecks and its gold lines.
Now, I know death is not the only thing when it comes to sense of loss and grief, but let's talk about that, because ironically, it's something that we avoid talking about.
Yeah.
No one likes talking about death.
No.
I don't like to talk about what I should do when my parents pass, for example. Why is that? Do you know? What's your point of view?
We're frightened of being disconnected. We're frightened of what lies beyond. And a lot of people are also terrified of, am I never going to exist again? Am I never going to see my mother? Am I never going to see my brother? Or am I never going to see them? This sense of disconnection creates an inner turmoil. It creates a spiritual crisis within us because we don't have the answers. And no matter what religion or what you follow, you're asked to have blind faith. Well, what is faith when your faith is totally being challenged and you can't see where your place is? And so it becomes one of the greatest challenges in life, but also it can be one of the greatest teachers that we have. You know, it can be, like I said, it can be a great gateway. I have a saying that I often espouse, which is, grief can be your greatest nemesis or it can be your greatest teacher. The choice is yours, and the choice is given to you as a gift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not only are we afraid of disconnection, I think it is because we don't know what happens.
We don't know what happens.
Yeah.
And I mean, I try not to go into the whole mystical experiences and the mediumship and afterlife, but there is a point. I mean, I had a near-death experience, so I crossed and I witnessed, you know, that we continue. So I have that. I have that knowing in me. I don't believe in anything because I always say, if I believe in something, it means I believe in the perception or the expectations of others. But if I know something in my soul, it's divine. I know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So because in my experience, I know things, and because of working as a medium, I've been able over the years to give people evidence that life continues. But it doesn't take away my own fear because I'm terrified of death.
Yes.
Not that we don't exist, but the process of it. That's another thing that we get terrified of death. We get terrified of the process of dying because nobody in their right mind wants to suffer.
Absolutely not.
And we suffer in so many ways. It could be suffer through illness. It could be suffering through disconnection. It can be suffering through many different expressions of suffering. You know, in Buddhism, they talk about, you know, suffering is a huge thing that we try to understand and to move through and see that it's the way of continuation, and that there shouldn't be suffering in the world. But of course, suffering also teaches us great lessons, but everybody has a deep fear of the method or of the process of that. Not necessarily, I would challenge a lot of people and say, you're not necessarily frightened of death, you're frightened of the process.
Yeah, and if I were in your shoes, I would like to use what the experience has taught me to help others understand as much as we can about the end. To some religion, that's not the end. It's just part of a cycle.
Yeah.
To a lot of people, this is the end. And as you were just describing your experience, I was thinking, what do I fear the most when it comes to death? You hit it in the head. Disconnection.
It's disconnection. To feel. And people will feel, here's the thing, we're frightened of disconnection, but what does that mean, right? We can feel disconnected from someone, from a relationship, but the worst thing is to be disconnected from ourselves. And in that same token, to not have the experience of seeing a beautiful rose, from hearing the cry of a child, from standing in the rain, to be disconnected from all of that is terrifying. Even the things that go on in the world that we see as negative is still an experience that teaches you something. No matter how negative it is, in every experience there is a blessing if only you find it, if only you open your eyes and your heart to look for it. And to be disconnected from yourself is to be disconnected from all things.
Yeah.
That's the scariest thing.
Yeah, and like my being disconnected from the people I love, I think that's what I am the most afraid of.
Yeah.
Partly is I cannot care for them. Partly is I worried for them. Like, how are they going to grieve? And I'm not saying I'm the greatest person on earth, but like, you think about these things.
I think, well, let me ask you this, because I think this is something that maybe your listeners can think about is it the fear of your disconnection, or is it the fear of knowing that you can't, or you feel you will never have a continuing bond, that you will never continue that relationship after they've gone from this world, thinking that, one, I can't speak to whomever it is, mum, dad, whatever, or I can't listen to them, I can't hear them. Is it for you the fear, if you look at yourself, is it not being able to continue that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
That's
imagine the
it.
power
Yeah.
that you get when you understand that you can, if we understand then that loss is merely an illusion, that it can be our greatest teacher, that all we need to do is to learn another language. Right? If I want to go to France and I want to immerse myself in the culture, I want to maybe learn French. If I want to go to Japan and immerse myself, I want to learn, or Russia, wherever I want to go, I can immerse myself and I can learn that language. Language is just this learned skill that exists. But we came from nothing as something. The animating force that animates all of life, that animates all of creation, created us. So there's an inherent power in us. So we have the ability, our natural state is from that divine source. So we can continue the bond from this side by learning the language of the soul.
My natural question is, how do we go about doing that? I don't know if we have enough time for that, but
that would be
for the people who come to you,
yeah.
What are they searching for? Like, what advice? Or it can be people who come to you for grief counseling. It could be people who come to you for mediumship. What are they searching for?
Every single person that exists on this planet is searching for connection.
Connection.
Because we are disconnected and we feel disconnected. So even when someone comes to me for a reading or a private sitting, or someone comes to me for counseling or spiritual crisis, what they're looking for is connection. Everything is boiled down to connection. Because the disconnect leaves us with no power, leaves us feeling lost. A light does not go on unless the circuit is totally connected.
Yeah.
And when the circuit is broken, there is no light. Right? So someone may come and say, well, I just want to hear from my loved one, or I'm suffering this way and I've lost my job, I don't know how to cope with it. The reality is every single one of us are seeking connection at a deeper level, where everything comes into place, where everything joins and becomes one. That's what we're seeking. Because when we feel disconnected, we feel lost. I'll give you an example, Karen. So let's say, for instance, your dad or your mum, if you think back to some times in your life where you were maybe sitting in your home or in your office, whatever, and you think, I got to phone my mum, there's something not right. She maybe feels a bit ill, or maybe there's something on her mind. And then you're like, you know what, I was thinking of mum or thinking of dad, I'll phone them, and you connect with them and like, oh, and they're chatting to you. That's an intuitive connection. That's because we're all interconnected and there's a bond of love. And if you think about vibration in science, everything is a vibration. The rate that it vibrates and the rate that atoms and molecules come together and create this illusion of solidity, it means that everything is a vibration. Now, if you're then connected and interconnected with everyone, connected with your mother, your father, or whoever it is, a sibling, and something distorts that vibration, you feel that yourself. And so that is almost like an intuitive link. And so you'll feel that. And it's being able to understand that and help to develop that even more. So your intuition goes hand in hand with your logic, because then you'll sit and you'll think, I was thinking about, I must, logically, I'll phone my mum or I'll do this. And then all of a sudden your connection and you feel better again. And she says, yeah, I was feeling a bit down, or, whatever happened, or even if nothing happens, even if you just felt you needed that connection and she needed that connection. That's because we're all connected, and there's an intuitive vibration, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
separate from logic. It's just a pattern, and we need to
Mm-hmm.
be able to identify and discern between that pattern and the logic and blend the two of them together, and it makes it really powerful. And so you've experienced these things. You've
Mm-hmm.
experienced it through, everybody has throughout our life. We just don't, we try to label it as psychic, or we try to, labels really
Yeah.
mean
Mm-hmm.
nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Label, it was just an inkling of what it might mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we want to give it a name so we
Yeah.
know what to do with it. So what can people do to be more attuned to like feeling these vibration? How can they use that to guide their everyday life?
You know, one of the things that again, there's a bit of a cliche where everybody will say, well, meditate and go into meditation and learn how to meditate. And, yes, that's a point. Yes, that can work. But I think there's so many other ways, so many more ways to develop yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I teach people to develop themselves through photography, through the photograph. Not from just staring at a
Mm-hmm.
photograph and trying to do psychometry, but picking up a camera and going out and photographing something beautiful and feeling the emotion and feeling the connection to something, to a
Yeah.
sunset, to
Mm-hmm.
the moon, to just a bird in the tree, that's for anything. Just take a camera and go, and that's another way you develop an intuition. And the other thing to understand is if you have a radio set or even your phone, if it's
Mm-hmm.
broke, does it mean that the signal doesn't exist? No,
That's a very good analogy.
right? Signal still
Yeah.
exists. You
Mm-hmm.
have to learn to discern the signal.
I was watching some of your
Mm.
videos and I was telling you about one of your quotes that caught my attention is life is the greatest gift we're given. Experience it, learn, and to live in a beautiful world. Now, I think that was a really powerful statement because so many of us are just hung up
Yeah.
on the past. It can be the passing of a loved one,
Mm.
it could be anything that's past. And I think your study is very relevant
Yeah.
because we don't understand death. That's why we're afraid. We're afraid of the process. We're afraid of what to do. And that is a very active way to not live our own life.
I would say to anybody out there who's listening wants to think there's a great, and I'll talk about an analogy as well that maybe Thich Nhat Hanh talked about, but for me, life is death and death is life.
How so? I'm intrigued.
Because without one, the other doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So think about it. Evil only exists because we know good and
Mm-hmm.
because we understand the difference. If there was
Mm-hmm.
no evil, there'd be this equilibrium, there'd be nothing. We wouldn't even know what good is because there'd just be this constant nothing. We need
Mm-hmm.
the opposites. We need the polar opposites to be able to enjoy the difference and discern between that signal and the noise. Without
Mm-hmm.
life, death doesn't exist. Without death, life doesn't exist. And so both
Mm-hmm.
are interconnected and interrelated. And they're our greatest. And life is so much of a gift, but so is death. But death we're afraid of because we're afraid of the unknown.
Yeah.
We're afraid of, is that it? What is the point?
What is the point?
Why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm just going to die and not continue, why am I here? And what is the point?
Mm-hmm.
Why should I bother? But then to realize that we need both, and that death can be the greatest gift that you have. But, my wife, we lost, and I was very close to my mother-in-law. We lost my mum a little while ago. And at the time of that loss and that disconnection, even for me that knows so much about it, it feels like your soul is being ripped apart.
Yeah.
But then I see my wife turn from a caterpillar to a beautiful butterfly, and the continuation goes on. And then there's a point where
Mhm.
she realizes that she's become stronger, that that her connection has never died, the continuing bonds are there. Once we realize that we continue, once we realize that the bonds can continue, the fear of death
Mm.
can then be accepted more as a gateway and an opportunity and to learn and grow. But it's the process that we all fear,
Mm.
right?
The
The
uncomfortable.
uncomfortableness, the
Yeah.
not knowing. And so I love the analogy by Thich Nhat Hanh where he says that you can be a leaf in a beautiful tree, and
Mhm.
then it comes autumn and the leaf dies.
Mhm.
But does it die? Because then it goes into the ground, and then it feeds the soil, and then the soil
Yeah.
feeds the tree, and then the
Mhm.
tree comes back, and then another leaf blooms.
Mhm.
So it's the circle of life.
It is the circle of life.
It is continuous. And when we realize it's
Mhm.
continuous, life
Mhm.
has a different meaning. Our worldview can totally change. And
Mhm.
death becomes, we realize that death is an illusion. Very famous medium many years ago, she would say, you can't die for the life of you.
You can Wow, I have to think about that a little. You can't die from the life of you.
For the life
Mhm.
of you, right? Which really means for the life that exists in you, it's continuous. There
Mhm.
is no
Yeah.
death.
Mhm.
It's only what we perceive and what we label.
Mhm.
And we have a terrible fear of dying, not because we're dying, it's because of disconnection.
Mhm.
And what if there is no beyond?
There are probably people who are very skeptical
Oh yeah,
of life and death is continuous.
yeah.
They will say, a dead person is a dead person. That's it. How would you talk to this person? What would you say to this person?
Well, just because you can't tangibly hold the air in your hand doesn't mean it doesn't exist, because it gives you life,
Wow, that's very powerful.
right? Pretty
Mhm.
much. And
Mhm.
I understand the way they feel, and I can empathize with them because you haven't experienced anything that challenges your worldview, that shocks, as Tillich in 1972 or 1973 brought out the
Mhm.
challenge of the ontological security, how things shatter. And it's then again brought further on by John Mack, who looked at ontological shock. Or that was about kind of UFO and UAP abductions. But then when you look at Stanislav
Mhm.
Grof's work of spiritual crisis and understanding this change, this ontological shock, this worldview, this is what happens with any scientist. It is because they are stuck in a paradigm of this is what there's a
Mhm. Mhm.
linear way things, and there
Yeah.
has to be an epistemological and evidential aspect to it. And I get that, and I appreciate it. But experience trumps theory every time. You can
Yeah.
theorize all you want, but your
Yeah.
experience will shock and change your worldview. And if they haven't
Mhm.
experienced it, it's only because they haven't experienced it yet.
Mhm. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
And just like the radio, if the radio is broke, doesn't mean the signal doesn't exist.
That's it. The air.
The air is simple as that,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
you can't tangibly hold it, don't mean it exists. But for some reason, a skeptic will actually then succumb to that and say, well, yeah, of course the air exists because it's oxygen, it's molecules and everything. Yeah, but you can't tangibly hold it, yet you still have faith in something that you perceive is not there materially.
Mhm. Mhm.
And without it, you don't exist. And
Mhm.
your belief does not preclude its existence. Your belief is not a rule for its reality. Whether you believe it or not will never stop it existing.
Mhm. So what would be one thing that you would say to people? Like how they should use this knowledge that like this knowledge, you haven't experienced it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. How can they use it in their everyday life?
Go out and look at a rose and look at it deeply. See its thorns, see its life, see its divine pattern. It's perfect in its pattern and its color, its vibrancy. But look at the petals. Look at how it's perfect. and you tell me that there's
Mhm.
not intelligence in the world.
Mm.
Has to be intelligence. Has to be a divine
Mhm.
intelligence to bring that. Look at the snowflake, the water, looking at the water, and then also
Uh-huh.
looking at a snowflake. And look at that. Look at
Mhm.
the pattern in it. Look at the intelligence behind it. You tell me there's not an intelligent source in the world that can't bring that together. That is not randomness. There's a
Mhm.
pattern. And
Mhm.
that's what you need to understand. Look for the patterns in life.
And the rose is just one thing.
Rose is just one
There's
thing.
so many
So
more
many more
things.
things.
Mhm.
You know, you have the opportunity. You have a phone. Literally as a time capsule or a camera. You can snap a moment. And that moment exists forever in a photo. There's where you can also see intelligence in that moment. Because the camera was created by thought. It just didn't materialize. There had to be an intelligent process behind it. So we have everything in life to look at. And death is an intelligent process. There is hidden meaning in death. And there is beautiful experiences to have by embracing the fact that death is an illusion and it is merely a gateway to a new beginning.
So in the beginning, I said we avoid talking about death. And you explained why.
Yeah.
What do you think we should talk more about?
I think we should talk more about death.
Death in every
In
aspect
every
of death.
aspect, because without it,
Mhm.
life doesn't, we don't understand life. I think we should get to understand death is our greatest teacher and not our nemesis. And realize that it is part of life. When we die or when we're going through any kind of form of grief, we will never heal from grief. It's an illusion.
We will never heal from grief. That's counterintuitive.
It is, until you realize that grief is part of your life, and grief is something that you integrate.
Mm-hmm.
We don't heal from it because, one, it's not a disease, and it is not.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that's imbalanced. It's not something that it's not an ism. It's not an alcoholism. It's not drug abuse. We don't need to heal from it. It's part of our life. It is something that we integrate and it becomes our teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Healing from grief is an illusion. Integrating grief is the next journey.
Mm, yeah. Like healing means you're getting rid of it.
Yeah, you'll never get rid of it.
But integrating, would you say, is taking your learnings and applying it to your life?
Taking your learning, applying it to your life, learning from it and growing.
Mm-hmm.
The caterpillar to the butterfly.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's play a rapid fire game.
Okay.
Sort of like a lighthearted way to wrap up our very heavy episode.
Okay.
Whatever comes to your mind. What's one thing grief teaches people that success never can?
How to live.
How to live. Okay. Like I know I said no, like just quick answers, but why? I want to know why.
How to live, because understanding grief is actually understanding life. And when you understand life, then you understand your place and you find meaning in the world, and you become the greatest gift that you can give humanity is the gift of service. And we do that from learning to live and die.
Has your work made you fear death less, more, or differently?
Fear death less. Fear the process still just as much.
Yes. Like just my reaction. Ugh.
Yeah.
The process is painful.
Yeah.
One word you associate with the unknown.
Connection.
That totally reframes it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it totally reframes it. Okay. What's something people misunderstand about grief? I know we talked about you heal from it.
That it exists in every thread of your life. It is not about death.
Yes. Do you think humans are meant to fully understand death?
Yes.
They are.
We are meant to fully embrace it and understand it, and that's part of the journey.
Okay, last one. What's one thing you hope listeners reflect on after this conversation?
That they're all gardeners.
They're all gardeners.
They're all gardeners. And when they plant a seed, they learn how to cultivate that and grow a beautiful flower or grow a beautiful tree. It is down to them.
Yeah, I will do that. All right. Well, thank you very much. I feel like this is just a surface.
It is.
Tip of the iceberg, for sure.
It is.
We don't have a whole lot of time, so we can't go to every aspect of what you told me in depth.
Karen, I'm happy to come back anytime and we can go deeper in anything you want to discuss.
Thank you so much for your time. It's like a wonderful opening to a completely different aspect of our life.
Thank you. I'm glad. I hope that your listeners get something from it. If they learn one thing that challenges their thinking, then I've done my job.
Yeah, that's very much what Mind Blend is about.
I love it. I love it.
All right. Thank you very much and take care.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Mind Blend. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to follow or share it with anyone who needs to hear it. And let's keep the conversation going. Connect with me on social media or leave me a comment. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and let's continue to blend our minds and discover what's possible.